You're watching the Stories That Scare channel. There is no turning back now.
There's homesick, and then there's home hungry. Homesick is when you miss a place. Home hungry is when you'd trade a 5-star steak dinner just to sit at your mama's kitchen table and eat something she reheated in the microwave. I was home hungry. Bad. My life had become Las Vegas. Big resort, big casino, big numbers, big meetings, big problems. I was an executive at one of the largest resorts on the Strip, which meant my days consisted of meetings about meetings we'd already had, followed by emails summarizing those meetings, followed by another meeting to determine why nobody had completed the work because everybody had been in meetings. And whenever Las Vegas wasn't enough, corporate was in Los Angeles. So I bounced between Nevada and California like a very well-paid ping pong ball. Flights, hotels, traffic, conference rooms, numbers, people, noise. I had spent years building exactly the career I wanted, and somewhere along the way, I started wanting something else. Home. Fredericksburg, Texas. Mama and my old man still lived there. Same house, same neighborhood, same front porch. That was where I learned to ride a bicycle, where I skinned both knees trying to prove I could jump a curb. I could not. It was where Mama yelled my entire government name from the front porch when the streetlights came on, where I trick-or-treated down Center Street every Halloween, where we had a Christmas store that somehow survived 365 days a year, selling ornaments in the middle of Texas. And the Peach Pit. Good gravy. The Peach Pit. Best pulled pork barbecue sandwich I'd ever eaten. I had eaten at restaurants in Las Vegas, where somebody wearing white gloves placed food in front of me with tweezers. Still would have traded it for a Peach Pit sandwich, so I took some time off, packed a bag, and went home. No business calls, no Los Angeles, no casino, no quarterly anything. Just Texas, Mama, my old man, and home. At least, that was the plan. Fredericksburg had grown. I knew that before I arrived. You couldn't expect a town to sit around waiting for you to come back. Wineries had exploded throughout the hill country. Tourism had grown, new homes, new businesses, new people. I expected all of that. What I didn't expect was the temperature. I stepped out of my car at a scenic turnout outside town and immediately stopped. Cool. Not cold, but cool. In August, in Central Texas. I looked at the temperature on my dashboard. 84 degrees. 84? I checked my phone. Same. I looked toward the sky, bright sunshine, blue overhead, yet large portions of the countryside were covered in shadow. I looked toward the horizon. Rolling hills, beautiful Texas hill country, but that's all they were. Hills. Frederick, around 1,700 feet above sea level. This wasn't Colorado. There weren't giant mountains surrounding town, yet the shadows stretching across the land looked like they belonged to enormous mountain peaks. I could almost make out their shapes, jagged, tall, impossible. I stepped farther from the car and stared. Nothing. Just rolling hills. I laughed to myself. Vegas has officially cooked my brain. Then I got back in the car. Home was 10 minutes away. The first thing that really bothered me wasn't a building. It was the people. I didn't recognize anybody. Now, I knew that sounded ridiculous. I'd been gone a long time. People move, people age, people have children, populations grow. I wasn't expecting the entire town to line the street holding a banner. Welcome back, important casino man. But still, Fredericksburg had always felt familiar. You'd recognize somebody, a face, a family, somebody who looked like somebody. Instead, everywhere I looked, strangers, and a lot of them were big, very big, tall people, broad shoulders, heavy hair. One fellow crossed the street wearing jeans, a pearl snap shirt, and a beautiful cream-colored cowboy hat. Probably 6'7", maybe taller. He tipped his hat when I stopped for him. "Much obliged, sir." Beautiful Texas accent. Polite. Nothing strange about him. Except, for a second, I could have sworn there was something underneath that cowboy hat. 2 bumps. I watched him reach the sidewalk. New hat style, I guess. Then I continued driving. A few blocks later, I saw Christmas lights. I slowed down. Red and green garland wrapped around the lampposts. Wreaths hung from storefronts. A giant decorated Christmas tree stood near a little plaza. I laughed. "Christmas in July!" Then I remembered something. It wasn't July. I checked my phone. August 14th. I looked back at the decorations. Christmas in August? A man stood on a ladder hanging ornaments from a lamppost. Big fellow. Very hairy arms. Cowboy boots. I rolled down my window. "Hey!" He looked down. "Yes, sir?" "Little late for Christmas in July, aren't y'all?" He frowned. "Late? It's August." He smiled. "Christmas ain't something you miss, sir." He hung another ornament. "It's something you maintain." I stared at him. He tipped his hat. "Y'all have a blessed afternoon." I slowly rolled my window back up. Okay. Different. Home had gotten different. Then I saw it. The Christmas store. I smiled immediately. "There you are." Finally. Something that hadn't changed. That store had been there when I was a kid. Christmas music in June. Santa figurines in September. Ornaments when it was 98 degrees outside. It made absolutely no sense, and that was why everybody loved it. I pulled into a parking space, then noticed the sign. My smile disappeared. The old name was gone. In enormous decorative letters, Keanzler Christmas Post. Underneath, Christmas 365. I stared. Keanzler? Never heard of them. Probably new owners. I got out. The bell above the door jingled as I entered. Christmas music, artificial snow, garland, nutcrackers, ornaments, stockings, trees everywhere. The store I'd remembered had been enthusiastic about Christmas. This place looked like Christmas had received an unlimited operating budget. A child ran past me. Then I noticed his feet. I stopped. He was wearing shorts. So there was absolutely no confusing what I saw. His legs were covered in dark hair, and where sneakers should have been, there were 2 small black hooves. I stared. The child disappeared around a display. "No!" A woman walked past carrying ornaments. Tall, elegant, beautiful red dress. Curled horns rose from her hair. Actual horns. I slowly turned. Another man. Horns. Another woman. Horns. Hooves. Hair. I looked around the store. "What in the holly jolly Christmas is going on?" A voice behind me said. "Can I help you, sir?" I turned. 7 feet tall. Maybe more. Dark hair covered his forearms. 2 enormous curled horns extended from his head. He wore a green vest, red bow tie, and a name tag. Keanzlers, assistant manager. He smiled pleasantly. "First time visiting?" I looked at his horns, then his hooves, then back at his face. First time recently. "Well, welcome home." That word hit me. Home. I forced a smile. "Thank you." He extended his hand. I shook it. His hand practically swallowed mine. Strong. Good gravy. Not handshake strong. Hydraulic equipment strong. He released me. I flexed my fingers. Y'all have certainly changed things. He beamed. We're mighty proud. Who's we, the Keanzlers? There it was again. What exactly is a Keanzler? His smile faded slightly. Not much, but I noticed. Then it returned. Well, we are. He gestured around the store. I looked. Horns, hooves, Christmas. Right. I nodded. Cleared that right up. I left. I needed barbecue. Barbecue could fix this. There are very few emotional problems in Texas that cannot at least be temporarily negotiated with smoked meat. So I headed toward the peach pit. My peach pit. I could already taste that pulled pork. Then I saw the building. Same location, same basic shape, different sign. Keanzlers Smokehouse. I slowed down. No. I pulled closer. Come on. Same building, different everything. No, no, no. I parked, stared. The peach pit? Gone. I leaned against the steering wheel. You better make one magnificent pulled pork sandwich. I wasn't ready to test that theory. Not yet. I had experienced enough change for one afternoon. So I headed toward Mama's. That's when things became personal. I turned towards Center Street. Or I tried to. The intersection was exactly where I remembered. The houses looked familiar. The trees were bigger, but the street sign was new. Keanzler Horns Doctor. I hit the brakes. Oh, come on! A car honked behind me. I moved, but I was talking to myself now. Center Street? That wasn't some random road. I learned to ride my bicycle there. I trick-or-treated there. I scraped my knee there. I threw up an entire caramel apple there when I was 9. That street had earned its name. And now, Keanzler Horns Drive? I pointed through the windshield. Those things already take up half the sidewalk. They don't need a street. Then I reached Main Street, and that's where they crossed the line. The sign read, Keanzler Grabavine Way. I pulled over. No. I read it again. No. Main Street. They renamed Main Street. You can change restaurants, you can change stores, you can build wineries, you can grow, you can apparently populate the town with enormous Christmas-loving goat people. Fine. Life is complicated. But there are lines civilized society does not cross. You do not mess with Main Street. I lowered my window. Keanzler Grapevine Way? A shadow moved beside the car. Beg your pardon, sir? I slowly looked up, and up, and up. A massive Keanzler stood beside my window. Curled horns, western vest, bolo tie, perfectly groomed beard. He smiled. Everything all right? I pointed at the sign. What happened to Main Street? He looked at it. Oh. He smiled proudly. Been Keanzler Grapevine Way going on 12 years now. 12 years? Yes, sir. Why? He thought for a moment. Sounds nicer. I stared at him. He tipped his cowboy hat. Y'all have a blessed afternoon. I smiled. Thank you. He walked away. I waited until he was out of earshot, then whispered, Keanzler's got to go bye-bye. Mama nearly squeezed the life out of me when I arrived. My old man hugged me next, and for about an hour, none of it mattered. Mama's kitchen smelled the same. My old man's chair was exactly where it had always been. Same family pictures. Same little marks on the wall where Mama measured my height growing up. Home, finally. Then Mama served dinner. I looked through the kitchen window. Across the neighborhood, Christmas lights were coming on. In August. Mama. Yes, baby. What happened here? She knew exactly what I meant. The Keanzlers? Yes, my old man chuckled. They take some getting used to. Getting used to? I pointed outside. One of them renamed Center Street after his head. Mama laughed. They're nice people. They have hooves. So? And horns. They can't help that. Main Street is Keanzler Grapevine Way. My old man stopped smiling. Yeah. I pointed at him. See? He nodded. That one bothered me too. Thank you. Mama shook her head. You two? I sat down. Where did they come from? My parents looked at each other. Then my old man leaned back. The wineries. I frowned. What about them? As they expanded, they started building bigger cellars. Beautiful ones. State-of-the-art. Some went pretty deep. Mama continued. One winery broke through into a natural cave. Okay. Then another. My old man nodded. Turns out those caves connect. I looked between them. To what? He shrugged. A whole lot more caves. Aquifers, natural springs, limestone chambers, stalactites, stalagmites. An enormous underground system beneath the hill country. And apparently, Keanzlers. They'd been down there for who knew how long. Generations. Centuries, maybe. Then the wineries opened passages. The Keanzlers came up. And something unexpected happened. They understood wine. Not casually, expertly. Fermentation, temperature, minerals, humidity, cellar conditions. Their underground knowledge transformed local production. Fredericksburg wine started getting better. Much better. Some could compete with anything produced anywhere. Money poured in. Tourists came. Wineries expanded again. More Keanzlers surfaced. They opened businesses, bought homes, joined committees, ran for office. I stared at my parents. They're running the town? Mama smiled. The mayor is a Keanzler. I nearly dropped my fork. The mayor? Nice man. Mama, the mayor has horns? So? I looked at my old man. He shrugged. One fair and square. City council? He made a face. Mostly Keanzler. I leaned back. Of course. That night, I couldn't sleep. Home was home. But it wasn't. I stood at my childhood bedroom window. The neighborhood was strangely cool. Too cool. Christmas lights twinkled between houses, and beyond them, that impossible darkness stretched across the town. I looked toward the horizon. No mountains, yet their shadows were there. Huge, jagged, towering. Then, something moved underneath the streetlight. Clack. I looked down. A Keanzler stood across the road, watching the house. He didn't move, didn't wave, just watched. Then another stepped from behind a tree. Clack. Then another. 3 of them, all facing our house. My humor disappeared. One slowly raised his head. Even from that distance, I could see his eyes reflecting the Christmas lights. Then, the street went dark. Every light. At once. I stepped back from the window. A few seconds later, the lights returned. The street was empty. I didn't sleep much after that. The next morning, casino executive replaced homesick son. Emotion doesn't solve problems. Information does. Casinos teach you that quickly. You don't run a property with thousands of guests, hundreds of employees, millions of dollars moving around, and enough cameras to photograph a mosquito scratching itself by guessing. You observe. You identify patterns. You control entrances. You control exits. You understand behavior. And above all, you remember one thing. The house never loses. I spread a map of Fredericksburg across Mama's dining room table. My old man walked in. What are you doing? Research. He looked at the map. On what? Keanzlerians. He stared at me. Keanzlers. I'm calling them Keanzlerians. Why? It sounds official. It sounds wrong. I've already committed. I started mapping wineries, cellars, cave entrances, aquifers, businesses, city offices, Keanzler-owned properties, Christmas decorations, shade structures, anything that looked unusual. How did horns and hooves adapt to underground living? I didn't know. I wrote, horns plus hooves equal to, then underneath, it is what it is. Sometimes science leaves the meeting. 3 days later, I found the pattern. Keanzlers were everywhere, but every major concentration connected back to underground access. Wineries, cellars, natural caves, drainage systems. And every year since they'd arrived, Fredericksburg had gotten slightly cooler. More shade, more Christmas decorations, more Keanzlers, and fewer familiar names. That bothered me, so I started searching property records, old businesses, former neighbors, people I'd known, moved. Everybody had supposedly moved, but some had no forwarding address, no new property, no obvious destination. They'd simply left. Then I found the Peach Pit, former owner, Walter Dobbins. Status: relocated. I knew Mr. Dobbins. Everybody did. He loved Fredericksburg. Used to say the only way he'd leave Texas was if somebody accidentally mailed him somewhere. I couldn't find where he'd gone. That was when I stopped laughing. The following night, I went to one of the wineries. Closed. I parked away from the building and watched. Casino surveillance teaches patience. People eventually establish patterns. At exactly 2:13 a.m., Keanzlers began arriving. 1, 5, 20, dozens. They entered through the winery. None came back out. I waited, then followed. The tasting room was dark. Barrels lined the cellar. At the rear, behind a wine rack, I found an opening. Cold air poured through it. I switched on my phone light. Stone steps descended underground. I should have left. Instead, I went down, because apparently a successful executive career does not prevent you from making decisions that would get a teenager yelled at in a horror movie. Down, deeper, cooler. The passage opened into natural limestone. Water dripped somewhere ahead. Stalactites hung overhead. Then I heard voices. Hundreds of voices. I reached an opening and looked down. My stomach dropped. A city. Not ruins. Not a few caves. A city. Light stretched through an enormous cavern. Stone structures. Walkways. Bridges. Thousands of Keanzlers. Thousands. I backed away. Then noticed something carved into the cavern wall beside me. A map. Fredericksburg. I stepped closer. Street by street. Neighborhood by neighborhood. But the names were wrong. Keanzler names. Everywhere. I found Mama and my old man's neighborhood. Already renamed. I found their street. Marked. Their house. Marked. I whispered, "They're not moving in." A voice behind me answered, "No, sir." I froze. Slowly turned. Mayor Keanzler stood behind me. Massive. Elegant suit. Polished horns. Bolo tie. His Texas accent was smooth as bourbon. "We're coming home." He invited me to dinner the next evening. Invited being a generous interpretation. We sat across from each other in a private room at Keanzler Smokehouse. Mayor Keanzler cut his food carefully. Perfect manners. "You've been mighty busy since you came home." "I like to stay productive." "So I've noticed." He took another bite. "You've also been underneath my town." I stopped. My town. There it was. "Funny," I said. "I thought it was everybody's town." His smile remained. "Of course." "Then why is my parents' house marked on a map underneath it?" The knife stopped moving, just briefly. Planning? For what? Progress. Where's Walter Dobbins? Silence. The room suddenly felt colder. Mayor Keanzler placed his knife down. Mr. Dobbins relocated. Where? He moved. Where? His eyes lifted toward mine. Something changed, not much, but enough. His pupils narrowed. The shadow behind him stretched up the wall. His horns looked larger, longer. For 1 second, I wasn't sitting across from an elected official. I was sitting across from something that had survived underground for centuries. Then he smiled, normal again. Careful with accusations, son. He dabbed his mouth with a napkin. You're home now. I stared at him. That was supposed to frighten me. It did. But Mayor Keanzler had made one mistake. He thought he'd invited a homesick man to dinner. He hadn't. He'd invited a casino executive. And casino executives know what to do when somebody thinks they own the house. I walked outside, pulled out my phone, and made one call. Las Vegas. The line answered. Operations. I looked across Keanzler Grapevine Way. Christmas lights. Horned silhouettes. Impossible mountain shadows. A town I barely recognized. Get busy. Silence. Then, how busy? Across the street, 2 Keanzlers were replacing another sign. Keanzler Heritage Loop. I closed my eyes. Texas busy. Pause. Then, we'll pack. I smiled. Because Mayor Keanzler had thousands of Keanzlers. He had caves. He had wineries. He had city council. He had horns, hooves, strength, and whatever else lived underneath Fredericksburg. But I had something he didn't. The Vegas Get Busy team. And Brenda. What did Brenda do? I still didn't know. But everybody respected Brenda. And if Brenda was coming, things were about to get busy. The Vegas Get Busy team arrived in Fredericksburg at 9:17 the next morning. Not in black SUVs, not in some armored vehicle, not even in rental cars. They arrived in a casino executive shuttle, black, polished, tinted windows, the kind normally reserved for executives, VIPs, and people who become deeply offended when sparkling water isn't cold enough. The shuttle pulled up in front of Mama's house. The door opened. 6 people stepped out. Polos, khakis, sunglasses, rolling equipment cases, laptops, tablets, clipboards, 1 folding printer, 2 enormous cases of extension cords, and Brenda. Brenda stepped off last. Mid-50s, reading glasses, comfortable shoes, large handbag, no equipment, no uniform, no visible reason whatsoever for being there. Everybody immediately moved out of her way. I walked toward them. Welcome to Fredericksburg. One of our surveillance guys looked around. Christmas lights, wreaths, garland. A 7-foot horned creature walked past carrying groceries. He stopped. That guy has hooves. Correct. And horns. Also correct. The Keanzler tipped his hat. Mornin', folks. Everybody politely answered. Morning. He continued walking. Our security director looked at me. One of those things is mayor? 2-term. Popular? Very. Brenda adjusted her glasses. How popular? Last number I found was 71% approval. She frowned. Well, that's inconvenient, and walked toward Mama's house. I followed. Brenda? Yes? What exactly did they send you here to do? She kept walking. My job. I nodded. Still didn't know. Mama had breakfast waiting, because apparently even a supernatural municipal takeover cannot interrupt a Texas mother's responsibility to feed unexpected guests. The Get Busy team filled the dining room. Mama brought out eggs, biscuits, bacon, coffee. My old man looked around at all the laptops. "So, y'all work at the casino?" "Yes, sir." "What do you do?" Everybody answered. "Security, surveillance, engineering, operations, risk, facilities." Then he pointed at Brenda. "What does she do?" Silence. Everyone looked at Brenda. Brenda sipped her coffee. My old man looked at me. I shrugged. "See?" After breakfast, we got busy. I stood in front of the dining room wall. I'd turned Mama's family room into a command center. Maps, photographs, property records, wine cellar diagrams, Keanzler businesses, underground access points. My old man had surrendered one television. He had refused to surrender the larger one. "That one's for football." "Dad, I'm trying to save Fredericksburg. And I'm trying to watch football." "Fair." We compromised. I pointed toward the map. "These are Keanzler-owned businesses." Brenda looked. "These?" "Yes." "All of them?" "Far as I can tell." She adjusted her glasses. "And these underground passages?" "Keanzler access." "Permitted?" I paused. "I don't know." Brenda looked at me, then at the team. The room changed. People sat straighter. Laptops opened. Someone grabbed a clipboard. I smiled. There it was. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Operation House Advantage." My old man looked up from his chair. "That's corny." It sounded better in my head. It usually does. I pointed at the map. "We are not fighting the Keanzlers." Our security director raised his hand. "Appreciate that." "Why?" He pointed through the window. A Keanzler was carrying an entire wooden picnic table by himself. "Oh, exactly," I continued. "We're going to do what casinos do best." Surveillance leaned forward. "Watch?" "Watch." Risk nodded. "Document?" "Document." Operations smiled. "Find everything they're doing wrong?" I smiled back. "Everything." Brenda opened her laptop. "Every business?" "Yes." "Every permit?" "Yes." "Every inspection?" "Yes." "Every property transfer?" "Yes." "Every ordinance?" "Yes." "Every tunnel?" "Especially every tunnel." She looked around the room. "Let's get busy." 6 chairs scraped backward at once. I still didn't know what Brenda did, but good gravy. She did it well. By noon, the Keanzlers hated us. Not feared us. Not yet. Hated us. Because the Get Busy team turned out to have a particular talent I hadn't fully appreciated in Las Vegas. They were professional tattletales. Not childish tattletales. Highly trained, extremely organized, corporately funded tattletales. A Keanzler installed a decorative Christmas arch over a sidewalk. One of our people appeared underneath it with a measuring tape. "Brenda!" The Keanzler stopped drilling. "What?" Our engineer pointed. "Clearance!" The Keanzler stared at him. "Sir, this arch celebrates the season. It also celebrates being 11 inches too low. It has stood here 3 years. That's 11 inches too long." The Keanzler's nostrils flared. Then Brenda appeared. "Permit?" The Keanzler looked at her. "Well, ma'am, Permit?" He slowly lowered his drill. "I'll check." "Much obliged." 20 minutes later, "Brenda!" We ran around the corner. One of the Get Busy team was pointing toward a newly opened cellar door. "They've got another tunnel!" A Keanzler emerged. "It is not a tunnel." We all looked at the enormous hole behind him. I looked at him. "What would you call it?" "An ancestral passageway." Our facilities manager checked his tablet. Not according to the county map. The Keanzler crossed his arms. My great-great-great-grandfather carved that passage with his own hands. Our facilities manager nodded sympathetically. That's impressive. Thank you. Did Grandpa pull a permit? The Keanzler's face dropped. I turned away before he saw me smile. Then came the parking. One Keanzler parked a delivery wagon across a fire lane. Click. Photograph. Brenda! A winery had added seating to an underground tasting room. Brenda! Someone ran electrical wiring through an unapproved cavern opening. Brenda! A Keanzler replaced another street sign without documentation. Brenda! By 3 o'clock, I heard Mayor Keanzler before I saw him. Would y'all please quit telling on us? Silence fell across Keanzler Grapevine Way. People stopped. Keanzler stopped. Tourists stopped. Even the Christmas music playing from a nearby storefront seemed quieter. Mayor Keanzler stormed toward us. His hooves struck the pavement. Clack, clack, clack. He pointed at my team. These people have been following my citizens around all day. I smiled. They're not following anybody. They photographed my vehicle. You were parked in a loading zone. I am the mayor. Brenda looked over her glasses. Still a loading zone. His head slowly turned toward her. For a second, I became concerned for Brenda. Then I remembered nobody else seemed concerned for Brenda. So I decided Brenda probably had it handled. Mayor Keanzler looked at me. You call these people off. They're doing their jobs. They're tattling. I shook my head. Mayor, they're not tattling. Brenda walked past us, carrying 3 binders. They're documenting. Mayor Keanzler stared at her, then at me, then at the team. His jaw tightened. For the first time, I saw worry. Good. But underneath the comedy, we started finding things that weren't funny. Property transfers. Dozens. Then hundreds. Human-owned homes purchased through companies connected to Keanzler families. Businesses sold under strange circumstances. Residents supposedly relocating. Addresses that led nowhere. Our risk specialist built a timeline. The more Keanzlers surfaced, the more humans disappeared from certain neighborhoods. Then surveillance found something worse. Every night, Keanzlers traveled underground. Not dozens, hundreds. And every route eventually converged beneath downtown Fredericksburg. Brenda and I went down. The entrance was beneath a winery. We descended past beautiful barrels, past climate-controlled storage, through the artificial cellar, and into natural limestone. The temperature dropped. My flashlight moved across stalactites overhead. Water trickled between rocks. Then the passage opened. I had seen the underground Keanzler city before. Brenda hadn't. She stopped. Thousands of lights glowed below us. Keanzlers moved through stone streets. Homes disappeared into cavern walls. Bridges crossed black underground water. Far beyond them, darkness. Brenda stared. That's a lot of Keanzlers. Keanzlerians. She looked at me. No. Fair. Then she noticed something. What are those? Along one wall, rows of boxes. Human boxes, not coffins. Storage. We approached. Wallets, house keys, photographs, driver's licenses, personal belongings. I picked up an old keychain. My chest tightened. Peach Pit Barbecue. I knew it. Walter Dobbins wore one just like it, every day, for years. According to city records, Walter had relocated. I turned the keychain over. His initials were scratched into the back. WD, I didn't make a joke. Neither did Brenda. Then we heard voices. We killed our flashlights. Keanzlers entered the chamber below. One dragged another crate toward the wall. Human belongings. More, Brenda whispered. They didn't all move. No. What happened to them? I looked toward the enormous underground city. I don't think I want to know. Then, clack. Behind us. We turned. A Keanzler stood in the passage. No western vest, no bolo tie, no Christmas sweater. Just dark fur. Horns, hooves, and eyes reflecting our tiny amount of light. He smiled. Even in we ran. You've never seen two casino executives move through a limestone cave that fast. Well, one casino executive. Whatever Brenda did, we reached the winery cellar. The Keanzler followed. Clack, 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 closer. I knocked over a chair. Brenda didn't even look back. Leave it! I wasn't planning to take it! We reached the stairs. The Keanzler grabbed my backpack. I slammed against the wall. His strength was unbelievable. Brenda turned. Release him. The Keanzler looked at her. I looked at her. She was 5 foot something. Reading glasses, comfortable shoes, handbag. The Keanzler was enormous. He slowly released my backpack. Brenda pointed down the stairs. Go! The Keanzler went. I stared at her. Brenda. Yes? What do you do? Move. We moved. I decided I'd ask again later. By morning, we had enough. Not enough to explain the missing residents, but enough to prove corruption, undisclosed financial relationships, improper property transfers, unapproved construction, conflicts of interest, questionable council votes, improperly posted meetings, unauthorized excavation. And Mayor Keanzler's fingerprints were everywhere. Brenda dropped a folder onto Mama's dining room table. Thump. I looked at it. What's this? Recall. I stared. We can recall him? She looked over her glasses. Yes. How? Signatures. How many? She told me. I smiled. Get busy. The team scattered. The Keanzlers fought back. Not with lawyers. At first. With fear. Keanzlers stood outside houses where recall petitions circulated. They followed residents home. They appeared beneath streetlights after midnight. Huge silhouettes. Horns stretching across walls. Hooves clicking against sidewalks. Clack, clack, clack. Christmas bells rang outside windows at 3 a.m. People withdrew their signatures. Some refused to answer their doors. Then the mountain shadows grew. Every afternoon, Fredericksburg became darker, cooler. Christmas lights stayed on longer. August began feeling like November. The Keanzlers weren't merely living above ground. They were changing it, making the surface more like the world beneath us. Cool, dark, shadowed, permanent Christmas. And somewhere under all those decorations, something old was spreading. That was their mistake, because intimidation works best when nobody records it. We ran a casino, we recorded everything, cameras went up, doorbells, dash cameras, portable surveillance, every threat, every shadow, every Keanzler standing outside someone's house. Documented. A Keanzler knocked down a camera. Brenda! Another blocked a driveway. Brenda! One tried covering a lens with his enormous hand. Our surveillance guy opened the window. Hey, Brenda, he's doing it again. The Keanzler threw both arms into the air. Would you people stop? No. Click. Another photograph. Every attempt to scare somebody created 2 more signatures. Then 5, then 20. Turns out people become remarkably courageous when they realize somebody else is watching the bully. Recall day arrived. City Hall was packed. Humans on one side, Keanzlers on the other. Christmas garland decorated the chamber. Of course it did. Mayor Keanzler stood behind the podium. Perfect suit. Polished horns. Texas flag behind him. He looked every bit the respectable mayor, until the results were announced. Recall passed. Silence. Then human applause erupted. Mayor Keanzler didn't move. His hands tightened around the podium. Wood cracked beneath his fingers. CRRK. The applause stopped. His head lowered. The lights flickered. The temperature dropped. His shadow stretched across the wall, up across the ceiling, much larger than his body. Then his horns began to change, longer, thicker, twisting outward. His shoulders expanded beneath his suit. Other Keanzlers stood. Clack, clack, clack. Rows of them. The Christmas lights decorating City Hall blinked out. Darkness. Then Mayor Keanzler's eyes opened. Two pale reflections. His voice came deeper now. Not elegant, not Texan, something older. You think paper removes us? Nobody answered. He stepped from behind the podium. One hoof struck the floor. Crack, tile split. You think votes change what lies beneath this town? Another step. Your people built homes above ours. Another. Roads. Another. Businesses. Another. Then you dug down and opened our doors. He looked directly at me. We were here first. For the first time since the Get Busy team arrived, nobody yelled for Brenda. Mayor Keanzler smiled. You wanted your home back. The darkness behind him seemed to rise like mountains. So do we. And there it was, the truth. The Keanzlers were home-hungry too, except their version of coming home meant everybody else had to leave. I stepped forward. You're right. Brenda looked at me. Mayor Keanzler stopped. You were here. I pointed downward. Underneath us. His smile disappeared. And Fredericksburg grew above you. I looked around the room. But this town isn't yours. I pointed toward the humans. And it isn't just ours. Then toward the Keanzlers. Some of your people were born here. Several Keanzlers looked at one another. They work here. I pointed toward another. Raise families here. Another. Built businesses here. Then I looked at Mayor Keanzler. You didn't bring your people home. Pause. You used them to take somebody else's. His eyes narrowed. I continued. And there's something I learned running casinos. Brenda sighed quietly. She knew what was coming. I smiled. The house never loses. Mayor Keanzler growled. This isn't your casino. No. I looked around City Hall. This is everybody's house. Then Brenda stepped beside me. She placed one final folder on the table. Mayor Keanzler looked at it. What is that? Brenda opened it. Emergency injunction. I looked at her. When did you do that? This afternoon. With who? People. What people? Relevant people. I nodded, of course. The order froze Keanzler-controlled property transfers, suspended underground expansion, closed unauthorized tunnels, triggered investigations into the missing residents, and prohibited further modification of public property until the new council reviewed everything. Mayor Keanzler stared at Brenda. You cannot do this. Brenda adjusted her glasses. Already did. I smiled. Good gravy. I loved Brenda. Still didn't know what she did. Without Mayor Keanzler controlling the council, things changed quickly. Some Keanzlers resisted. Some disappeared underground, but others stayed. And surprisingly, helped. Because we'd been wrong about something too. Not every Keanzler supported what the mayor had done. Some had wanted exactly what humans wanted. Homes, families, businesses, a place to belong. They didn't want Fredericksburg replaced. They wanted to become part of it. So we negotiated. The underground city remained. Legal access points were established. Human disappearances were investigated. Unauthorized property transfers were reversed where possible, and the massive shade structures began coming down. The strange mountain shadows slowly disappeared. Nobody could explain those. Not engineers, not scientists, not Brenda, although I suspected Brenda probably could. She just wasn't telling us. Within days, August returned, hot, bright, Texas. The first afternoon, the temperature reached 98. I stood outside Mama's house, sweating, smiling like a fool. My old man walked past. "You wanted summer back." I did. "You happy?" I wiped my forehead. "No." He laughed. "Thought so." Then came the negotiations that actually mattered. City council, new leadership, humans and Keanzlers together. First agenda item, street names. I stood. Center Street. A Keanzler council member raised his hand. "Keanzler Horns Drive has cultural significance." I stared at him. So does Center Street. Discussion, debate, vote. Center Street restored. I nearly cried. Then Main Street. One Keanzler stood. "Keanzler Grapevine Way celebrates our contribution to the wine industry." I stood. "Main Street celebrates knowing where Main Street is." Applause. Vote. Main Street restored. I leaned back. Home. Then came the businesses. Keanzler Christmas Post? Stayed. I wasn't fighting that battle. Honestly, they'd improved it. Then, Keanzler Smokehouse. I objected. The Peach Pit was an institution. A Keanzler council member slid a plate toward me. Pulled pork sandwich. "Try it." I stared. Brenda picked up half, took a bite. I watched her. She chewed, swallowed, then took another. I picked up my half. One bite. I stopped. Good gravy. Smoke, tender pork, sauce, little bit of sweetness, little bit of heat. I looked at Brenda. She looked at me. "Smokehouse stays." I nodded. Smokehouse stays. Nobody challenged Brenda. 2 weeks later, I sat on Mama and my old man's front porch. Warm summer evening. Cicadas, sunset. No impossible mountains. No giant shadows. Christmas lights were still visible several houses down. We'd compromised on that. The Keanzlers could celebrate Christmas whenever they wanted. They simply couldn't turn the entire municipality into the North Pole without public hearings. Fair. Mama brought lemonade outside. My old man sat beside me. "You staying?" I looked toward Center Street. My Center Street. Kids rode bicycles. A human boy raced a little Keanzler girl with tiny horns. She was winning. Badly. I smiled. Little longer. Maybe home hadn't disappeared. Maybe I'd made the mistake of believing home had to wait exactly as I'd left it. It doesn't. People change, towns change, families change. Even home changes. The important part is making sure change doesn't erase everybody who came before it. I finally understood something. I hadn't come back because Fredericksburg needed me. I'd come back because I needed Fredericksburg. And maybe so did the Keanzlers. The Get Busy team returned to Vegas the following morning. Everybody loaded the shuttle. Security, surveillance, operations, engineering, risk, facilities, then Brenda. I stopped her before she boarded. "Brenda." "Yes?" "We've spent 2 weeks together." "Yes." "You stared down a Keanzler twice your size." "Yes." "You helped recall a mayor." "Yes." "You somehow got an emergency injunction in less than one afternoon." "Yes." "You inspected a road." "Yes." "You shut down 3 caves." "4 caves." "Yes." I took a breath. "Brenda, what exactly do you do?" She stared at me, then smiled. Get busy. She stepped onto the shuttle. The door closed. I watched it drive away. Still, no idea. That evening, I went to the Keanzler Smokehouse. Apparently, I was capable of personal growth. I ordered pulled pork, sat outside. Main Street was Main Street again. Summer heat hung over Fredericksburg. A Keanzler family walked past carrying Christmas presents. In August. I shook my head. Christmas in July, I understand. One of them looked at me. I pointed at his presents. But Christmas in August? He smiled. Christmas ain't something you miss, sir. I knew the rest. It's something you maintain. He tipped his hat. Exactly. I laughed. Maybe they were growing on me. Then, beneath my chair, clack. I stopped chewing. Another sound came from underneath the pavement. Clack, pause, clack. I slowly looked down. The waiter noticed. Everything all right, sir? I stared at the ground. Something was moving underneath us. I swallowed my food, then called toward the restaurant. Excuse me, the waiter returned. Yes, sir? I pointed toward the floor. Y'all got a permit for that? He froze. I smiled, because some things change, some things don't. And if something strange was still happening underneath Fredericksburg, well, I knew people, especially one. What did Brenda do? I still didn't know. But whatever was under that street was about to find out. Thanks for stopping by.